On May 2nd, there was a political and legal shockwave that hit the country. That came about because of a leaked draft opinion. And what this leaked opinion says is that Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided in 1973, and that a majority of this court doesn't think that Roe v. Wade should be good law anymore. This constitutional right to an abortion up to about 23 or 24 weeks, this right that has existed for almost 5 decades, that would vanish. Some states that have more liberal leanings have already taken steps that would maintain similar or even stronger protections than what Roe offered. Some states already have what are called trigger ban, but these state laws are designed in such a way that at the moment that Roe is overturned, this trigger provision of these state laws kicks in, and in some states it would impose very, very sharp bans and restrictions on abortion. Alito, in his analysis, went to the text of the 14th Amendment and found that there's no mention of abortion there. Since abortion does not have constitutional protections, there should be no federal right there unless it's put in place by Congress, which, as we know, Congress has not done. And therefore, this is the kind of issue that should be best left up to the state legislatures.
Abortion is oppression!
The leaked draft memo of the decision on Roe v. Wade has certainly been used by Democrats, I think, to galvanize their base. Democrats have been trying to find an issue that sticks with their base and an issue that will help drive voters out to the polls. And really, this could be it, especially for their base.
We saw Democrats basically unite together and use that moment as something that could potentially galvanize voters in the midterms, of course, coming up on several critical races and key battleground states. It's a moment where the party can be a little bit introspective. Several sources within the party who I've talked to have said, the onus is on us to really show a united front against the Republican Party and kind of quiet some of that infighting that the Democratic Party is known for.
We've seen primary winners really start to pivot this in their general election messaging, saying that, as Democrats, they will fight to push back on any restrictions that are put on Roe v. Wade in their respective states and at the federal level. However, a lot of Republicans I talk to, and even some Democrats I talk to, say that when it comes to swing voters in particular, this may not be a huge issue because they're weighing abortion and they're weighing, kitchen table issues like inflation, like the economy. At the state level, when it comes to gubernatorial, lieutenant gubernatorial, and state attorneys general races, I think abortion will play a different role than it would at the federal level. And it would be up to these state officials to decide where to go next on the issue of abortion. You see a lot of attorney general candidates, whether it's in Michigan, Georgia, Arizona. Those states might not have trigger laws by definition, but they have those laws on the books. And if Roe v. Wade were to be overturned, it would be an open question as to where to go from there.
Governor's races are the ones that almost every national Democrat is looking at right now because they have the ultimate control. If Democrats pick up certain governors' mansions, then they will be able to effectively reverse some of the laws that are on the books.
Another source of authority that states can draw upon if Roe v. Wade is struck down and this federal right to abortion is removed are state constitutions. Some state constitutions, even in conservative states, have language in there that talks about privacy rights or the right to make personal medical decisions without interference from the state. If Roe is in fact overturned, you're going to see that fight move to state court battles.
while it's a federal issue and while you're going to hear federal candidates talk about this, it's also going to be, I would say, maybe an even bigger issue at the state level, because this decision by the Supreme Court is essentially punching this decision back to the states.
Another major shockwave was the very existence of this leak. It's unprecedented in the court's history to have a draft opinion leak.
We've noticed so far that the Republicans have been focusing more on the process angle of this, which is essentially that this draft memo was leaked. But the Democratic side, what we're expecting to see from them is that they're looking to sort of basically say to Republicans, look, we're just as upset about the process part of this as you are, but this is not the fundamental issue.
I've talked to a number of Republican incumbents and challengers and candidates who have consistently punted back to what they say is the sacred duty of the Supreme Court and how that was put in jeopardy by that leaked draft memo. Lots of people are upset by death threats that have been received by, for example, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. They're unhappy with the coverage of, how this has gone. They point to this is a consequence in part due to the leaked draft memo. So I think, they're going to be consistently pointing to that.
If the Republican Party and the Democratic Party both keep abortion politics as a main sort of fundamental line in the sand on both sides, I think that it's going to be played out very heavily on the campaign trail at the presidential level and for the next year or so at the White House currently, as Democrats are still in control. But certainly at the presidential level, this is something that is a core Democratic Party principle. It's in the platform. It's been, officially endorsed for many, many years throughout the party. And so I don't expect to see any radical change in how the party addresses the issue, except for, if anything, doubling down and really maybe sending more resources.
Most sources I've spoke to think that even if there are some changes on the margins, that probably the core reasoning contained in this draft opinion is going to resemble quite closely what the reasoning is in the final published opinion. People who are pregnant and want to terminate their pregnancy, if they are people of means, if they can afford to travel out of state or even out of country to obtain that procedure, I think probably they're not going to be as impacted as much by a decision overturning Roe v. Wade. It seems the consensus among experts now is that the burden is going to fall most heavily among people who are poor and people who tend to be of minority populations. We're going to see kind of a patchwork emerge at state levels where there's going to be a number of different laws that could vary quite significantly depending on which regions of the United States that you're in.